stream.
Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat and welcome to PUBLiKO sa SONA 2022, the official special live coverage of PUBLiKO's Asia Incorporated of the first State of the Nation address of President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. Ako si Attorney Aurelisin Suat at kasama ko ang founder at Chief Executive Officer ng PUBLiKOS na si Malu Tikia. Siyempre kasama rin natin ang Chief Data Scientist ng PUBLiKOS, si Dr. David Barua Yap Jr. Dito naman, sasamahan naman namin kayo panoorin yung SONA. Bago mag-start yung SONA, i-discuss lang namin yung ibang policies at issues na baka lumabas sa SONA. At pagkatapos naman ng SONA, pwede rin panoorin dito sa aming live stream. Pagkatapos ng SONA, i-rate naman namin yung mga ibang policy stances o iba pang mga bagay na sinabi ng ating Pangulo, si Pangulong Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. sa unang SONA niya. Pero una sa lahat, tatanungin ko si Ma'am Malu kasi idea niya ito actually. Or siya nag-send off nito. Ano yung ibig sabihin ng PUBLiKO sa SONA? Or bakit PUBLiKO sa SONA ang ating tema ngayong araw?
Oo, alam mo Aurelio, napakahalaga na ginawa natin ito. Ngayon lang tayo nagdesisyon na magkaroon ng coverage. Tayo-tayo lang ang gumawa nito kasama ang ating mga kaibigan at nakikinig at nanonood sa atin. Bakit publiko sa SONA? Mahalaga ho ang amin hong pananaw, napakahalaga ho ng sentimento ng publiko sapagkat ito ho ang unang Pangulo na naka 31 million or 58% of the total registered voters. Mahalaga hong makinig at mai-explain namin sa inyo kung ano yung kanyang sinasabi kasi ang balita namin very technical yung SONA. So kaya namin linagay publiko. Ang publiko ng presidente ay iba sa publiko ng congressman, ay iba sa publiko ng cabinet member, no? So parating tatanungin natin, kanino ba nagsasalita ang Pangulo? Sino ba ang kanyang pinupunto sa mga sasabihin niya mamaya? Ganun rin po ang mga kongresista. Kung sila ang sinasabihan ng Pangulo, essentially, sinasabi ng Pangulo yung tinatawag natin legislative agenda. Ano bang agenda ng Pangulo? Paano makakatulong ang 19th Congress na nakita nating nabuo kaninang umaga. So, yung publiko linalagay namin sa usapan para makita ng nanonood at nakikinig na napakahalaga sila sa bawat sasabihin ng ating Pangulo sa State of the Nation Address.
Now, Ma'am Malu, dun sa pinaka-recent yung episode ng Maltic, yung vlog tungkol sa politika at sa policy, ipinaliwanag nyo kung ano ang SONA. Siguro wala tayong oras ngayon na i-play ng buo, pero baka pwede nyo i-summarize para sa amin, ma'am. Ano nga ba ang SONA at bakit siya mahalaga?
Oo, ang SONA mahalaga kasi doon mo mapapakinggan ang Pangulong nagsasaad ng kanyang plano. Ang SONA ay nasa saligang batas, isang requirement ng isang Pangulo na dapat every year ay pumupunta siya sa Kongreso para ipahayag ano ba ang plano mo, paano ba kami makakatulong, at sa panlabas, doon sa mga tinatawag natin sina Juan de la Cruz, kailangan tayo makinig para malaman natin paano tayo gagalaw bilang citizens. No? Napakahalaga, hindi lang po ito usapin ng mga nahalal, usapin rin po ito noon sa naghalal kasi ang kapangyarihan sa demokrasya ay nasa tao. Mahalaga ho ang parte ninyo para umusad ang ating bansa sa susunod na 6 na taon.
Now, David, ipapasok ko naman sa iyo bilang Chief Data Scientist at pollster ng PUBLiKOS. Nag-run din tayo ng quarterly pahayag survey at siguro magandang puntahan yung 3 macro issues matrix doon. Doon tinatanong natin or we ask the respondents to select and rank the 3 most important issues that the next president or President Marcos should focus on. So ano yung nakalagay doon sa June 2022 second quarter survey natin?
Well, nothing much has changed if you consider the past 3 or 4 pahayag quarterly surveys. At the very top is still the economy, and then following close behind that is jobs. And then the thing that emerged in recent survey quarters is education. But education as the third most popular topic is still lagging behind the 2 that I mentioned, education and jobs. And I think that with what we are experiencing right now, particularly the steep inflation rates that we are seeing right now, people are very wary. People are very concerned about inflation and how it pertains to our economic prospects moving forward. And I think that this kind of inflation is not something that we can just expect to be fixed, because uh, inflation at its core is fundamentally a monetary phenomenon. Put simply, it's too much money chasing after too few goods. And why is there a lot of money going around? If you consider the past few years, what the government, not just the Philippines, what governments around the world have been doing is that they have been releasing a whole lot of money into the system to combat the ravages of COVID on the economy. And of course, in the post COVID landscape, governments were forced to look at stimulus packages, both on the macro and micro levels of their economy. So there's a lot of money going around. The challenge right now is to ensure that there is still adequate room to grow, and that's where the demand comes in. So I think that if you refer to the Pahayag Quarter 2 survey, and if we consider what we are waiting for in the SONA later on, we are hoping for some direction in how the government is going to optimize what opportunities it has moving into, say, the third and the fourth quarters of this year, as well as 2023.
I think magandang jumping point off dun siguro sa economic policy pa lang, kung kayong dalawa, Malu and David, kung meron kayong wish list ng mga economic policies or proposals na gusto niyong ipahayag ng ating Pangulo sa SONA niya, what would they be?
Sa akin na mahalaga ang agrikultura dahil yun ang panggagalingan ng kakainin ng taong bayan. At dahil doon, kailangang maaapektuhan rin yun ng presyo ng forex natin at ang importation at exportation policies natin. Pangalawa, mahalaga sa akin ang SMSE. Dahil tayo bumabangon pa lamang from the problems that caused our economic situation, already matatandaan mo na almost 99% ng ating, not 90% ng ating bansa ay MSMEs. 10% lamang yung higanteng mga kumpanya. So, sa akin, napakahalagang magsabi si Pangulo na hindi ko muna, wag muna kayo magbayad ng permits and business permits and licenses nyo. O wag muna yung tax, no? Lalo na doon sa mga SMSEs na nagsara at hindi nakabangon. Doon naman sa mga nakabangon, anong kailangang tulong? Hindi tayo dapat parating ayuda kasi it promotes a different culture, a different work ethic. Dapat matuto tayong bumangon sa sarili nating effort, pero yung environment by which we operate dapat medyo conducive sa isang entrepreneur. Pangatlo, siguro napakahalaga sa akin yung peace and order. Yung kasama na dyan yung illegal drugs, kasama na dyan yung ating dekadang laban sa makakaliwa. Sa akin, ang gusto ko marinig sa kanya, kung ipagpapatuloy niya ito at paano kakaiba sa nakaraang Pangulo.
Ikaw, David, ano yung mga gusto mong marinig sa SONA ni Pangulong Marcos?
Well, for me, I would start by agreeing with what Ma'am Malu has said, especially with the need to taper off of yung ayuda. We have to start weaning the public off of ayuda, and related to that, I think, is reducing how much the government spends. I think it's time that the incumbent administration starts tapping on the brake a little when it comes to government spending, because if you consider how much has been spent during the pandemic and during the first few months supposedly after the pandemic, when we are in the post COVID scenario, billions and billions have been spent, and following that same trajectory over the next 6 months, over the next 12 months, is going to increase the risk of stagflation, wherein there's just too much money. You're even going away from full employment, and again, you also have to consider how dole outs will affect the psychology of people, and with regards particularly to working. If you give people dole outs, if you give them ayuda, at the end of the day, it increases their reservation wage, thereby making employment a trickier problem moving forward. So the government, I think, has to think about reducing not just its budget, but the size of the bureaucracy. And I think that this is a welcome sign to this effect is the reduction of the number of deputy speakers in the House, and of course the veto of the proposed bill pertaining to the OGCC, and the DBM's proposal for right sizing. I think these are welcome bits of news when it comes to talking about reducing the size of government spending and reducing the size of the bureaucracy.
Really, if I may, no? Hindi lang siguro yung reduction ng bureaucracy ang napakahalaga when it comes to the budget. I think government should be able to identify departments who are unable to
Yeah.
use the budget allocated to them. Yung absorptive capacity, kung titingnan natin, yung pandemya there was no new money injected into the system. What they did was just gather a sizable amount and then use this for the pandemic. Again, absorptive capacity. Ang ating budget, umaabot na ng 3 trillion or 5 trillion.
5 trillion naman.
Okay? So pag nagbigay ka sa ahensya, dapat may ability rin ang DBM na makita na kung hindi ginagamit ng 2 taon na tama, huwag mo nyo nang bigyan. Kasi ang magyayari lang yan, realignment and realignment. Hindi naman magandang practice yung realignment. Dapat kasi, kaya tayo nagbibigay ng pondo para ma-pump up, diba? Ma-release sa market through services and activities. Pag hindi ito nagawa at by the second semester of the year, ang laki pang budget meron ng isang ahensya, may problema ka doon. So siguro doon sa bago pumunta sa usapin ng right sizing, siguro hindi ko minumungkahi ang zero sum, yung zero budgeting. Pero there's got to be a way na i-reform mo yung budget, yung hindi kayang gumugol at humihingi ng malaki. Dapat tingnan nyo o mag-introduce ng metrics para makita na biro mo yung natutulog na pera sa ahensya na kailangan na ibabayin sa taong bayan. So yun ang malaking pagbabago na tinitingnan ko sa budget process.
So ang pinag-uusapan natin ngayon is the budget and the budget balancing. Pero that has two sides to the same coin din. Ang napag-usapan natin so far was cutting, spending, etc. Pero ang recommendation ng economic managers ni dating Pangulong Duterte ay magtaas ng tax dito sa kasalukuyang administrasyon. What are your views on the proposed tax increases na, well, yung nakaraang administrasyon yung nagpo-push, pero the ones who will take the political fallout will be the present administration, the Marcos administration?
Sa tingin ko, pag-aralan muna at i-harmonize yung tax at incentive. Meron tayong pinasambatas na amendment to the Investment Act, no? At saka yung retail trade at saka yung public services. Sa tingin ko, patakbuhin muna natin yon at kung yun ay makakalipol ng pondo para sa kailangan ng gobyerno, makita natin. Kasi kung magta-tax ka lang, kunyari yung excise tax, malaki kita ng gobyerno doon. Naipit ang gobyerno, ako ba'y magbibigay ng ayuda sa mga jeepney o babawasan ko yung excise tax para susuportahan ng gobyerno, para babalik tayo doon sa OPSF ng panahon. Ang akin, kung ano yung na-tax, ayusin ang pagkolekta. Kung yun ay problema ng collection, definitely yung solusyon na mag-tax pa more, hindi dapat siguro yung tingnan ngayon kasi lumiliit ang pondo ni Juan de la Cruz. Kung ikaw ay minimum wage earner, lumiliit para makapagdala siya ng pagkain sa hapagkainan, ng 3 nutritious meals, lumiliit dahil sa pangangailangan sa edukasyon. So itong mga ganito, kailangan nating mabalanse ng maigi. Yung ayuda, hindi ako pabor doon kasi tinan mo yung 4Ps. Ang tagal na niyang 4Ps, wala nag-graduate. Only for us to discover, to Secretary Tulfo, 1.5. million beneficiaries, mukhang aalsin na nila doon sa 4.4. Pag nagkaganon, at alam natin yung 4.4 na 4Ps, lumaki yan dahil sa pandemya, naging almost 8 million. Tapos sasabihin mo, ay 1.5, ay, hindi ko alam kung spurious yung entry o nag-graduate na. Dapat kasi klarado eh. Papasok kayo dyan, pag na-attain nyo na yung certain measurement na ikaw kaya mo nang padala ang iyong anak sa eskwelahan, pwede na ng eleksyon at lahat, dapat umalis para yung cycle na papalitan. Kasi parang ang laki na ng ginastos natin sa 4Ps, ibig mo sabihin, hindi pa rin natin nababa ang mahihirap. Parang medyo sayang kasi para yung parang parating sinasabi, we should what's the right term? When you do with poverty threshold, you should not you should be able to cure and remove those under the poverty threshold. Pero alam natin yan, cyclical yan. Hindi naman lahat ay minsan ay mayaman o middle class. Minsan, malaki sa middle class natin ang pumupunta na ngayon sa mahirap. So, dapat yung datos napakahalaga. Yun yung parati natin sinasabi. Pag nag-technical report ka, ang labanan datos. Hindi yung objective, hindi yung end goal. Pero datos, tama ba yung datos na linagay nyo? Tama ba yung pathway na pinag-aaralan nyo? O merong ibang paraan para tingnan yung datos na yan?
Ikaw, David, I mean, alam pa naman, libertarian ka, kaya hindi ko alam kung tatanong ko pa ba sa iyo.
Exactly. Ako, I am against any new taxes for several reasons. But let me just start by saying that when you going back to what I was saying earlier, when we talk about inflation in itself is a tax. Because regardless of the cause of inflation, as I said, it's a monetary phenomenon. Regardless of the cause of inflation, what happens when you have inflation is that you reduce the value of the money that people are holding right now.
So masingit ko lang ha, yung sinasabi ho ni David, yung basket of goods, kung kaya niyong bilhin kahapon, pwede hong lumiliit ngayon dahil sa inflation.
Tama, na wala kang ginawa, yung 100 pesos mo ngayon, bukas, makalawa, naging 99 pesos dahil tumaas na yung presyo. Mas konti yung nabibili nyo dahil sa pagtaas ng presyo ng bilihin. Hindi naman instant yung pagtaas ng sweldo nyo. Kaya nagkakabulan yung inyong sweldo at saka yung presyo ng bilihin. So, para kang tinatax na rin noon. So that's why I say that inflation is a tax on consumption, on consumers. So, you already have inflation as a tax on consumers and you want to add more taxes. And I think that adding more taxes is a surefire way of slowing down economic growth. Because at the end of the day, when you take more taxes, it is the government, yung gobyerno, yung gustong gumastos ng pera. Kasi tandaan po natin, wala naman talagang government funded. All of it is taxpayer funded. So what I'm saying is, if you tax people more, you're going through an extra step na imbes na yung manggagawa, yung kumita ng pera, yung gagastos, yung gobyerno kukunin muna gamit yung buwis, tapos sila rin yung gagastos. Ang sinasabi ko is, if you want economic growth, if you want faster economic growth, we shouldn't even be talking about more taxes. We should even be talking about lower taxes, in the sense that it's people who should be spending. We can cut out the middleman. We can cut out the middleman, the government, in most transactions, in the sense that, instead of increasing the taxes, why don't we allow people to keep more of what they earn, let them spend it, mas maraming umiikot sa ekonomiya, mas lalago yung ekonomiya, and if the economy grows with the existing taxes in place, everything from VAT, from excise taxes to income taxes, the government will eventually earn more. And I think just to go a bit more technical here, if we remember the Laffer curve, it's very seldom a good idea to unambiguously just increase the tax rates. because it increases the incentive, the incentive for people to avoid taxes.
As well as promote negative
You're
behavior.
you're encouraging, you're
Corruption.
promoting negative behavior, and
Taxation.
you're increasing the margin that could be allowed for illicit behavior. Instead of paying X amount in taxes, I'm just going to have an illicit arrangement na, uy, sige, babayaran na lang kita. Keep me and under the table dealings, and then I wouldn't have to deal about the BIR going after me. So that kind of tax rate, a high enough tax rate, would create spaces, opportunities for this kind of behavior. So it's never cut and dried. Na if the government wants more, if the government wants more money, if the government wants to spend, it's not always the case that you should increase taxes. It might be the case that you want to reduce taxes in order to collect more revenue. And I think, going back to my earlier point, does the government really need to expand? I think that's always the question. We are always thinking
At
that the
5
government
trillion
should,
pesos a year.
at 5 trillion pesos a year, do we still want the government to grow even larger? I think we also now have to consider the very real risk of crowding out. Because at the end of the day, if the government is there is this sense of crowding out of private enterprise. And you are crowding out entrepreneurship, you're crowding out individual, private, charity. All of these have been studied time and time again in other countries, that if you give more and more space for the government, you leave out less and less for the private sector. And maybe it's time that we should consider that the government should go on a diet, should be leaner, it should be more agile.
Magda-diet ang
Sa tingin
gobyerno.
ko, oo, sa
Magda-diet
tingin ko,
ang gobyerno.
ako,
Magandang
yung mga sinabi ni
soundbite yun.
David, medyo sa mga katulad ko, medyo ako'y nababahala. Pero yun ang punto de vista niya eh. Maliit na gobyerno, mean and
Pwede
and
naman,
lean and
hindi
mean.
naman
Lean and
kahit
mean.
lean. It's just lean.
Pero may problema ako dyan. Kasi paano yung social safety nets mo? Naiintindihan ko na the government should be there for the, di ba sinabi nga ni Magsaysay, no? Those who are poor in life should have more in-laws, di ba? Parang ang punto ko lang naman dyan, ang gobyerno na andyan para dun sa mga nasa, ayoko sabihin laylayan kasi may kulay yun no?
Nakadilaw ka pa naman.
Oo nga, nakadilaw pa naman. Dapat nandyan ang gobyerno para dun sa kailangan na ang tulong na hahawakan nila ang gobyerno para makaandar sa buhay, no? Hindi dapat ang gobyerno na andyan para gawin ang kayang gawin ng private sector. On the other hand, naramdaman natin ang gobyerno nung panahon ni Duterte. Naramdaman natin yan, nakita natin may mga kalaban pa rin pala tayong dati pang kalaban, yung mga oligarchs, no? Sa akin, napakahalaga na nararamdaman ng tao ang gobyerno. Kasi kung nararamdaman nila na may gobyerno, rerespetuhin nila ang batas. Hindi sila magbabiolate, hindi sila parati na lang uusigin ang gobyerno. Kasi ang gobyerno may talagang role sa ating demokrasya. Yung sinasabi kasi ni David is a pathway to a different norm, which is the leaner the government, the more private sector led. May ibang nagsasabi mas maganda yung ganon. Pero kung sa ating lipunan meron pa tayong bumaba na sa 17% pero umakyat yata sa 20% ng people below the poverty threshold. Siguro kailangan nating tingnan muna yon na talagang tingnan na hindi panghabang buhay. Kasi ang regional natin is 15. Diba sa Southeast Asia. So kung may ibaba natin ng 15, kahit 17, competitive ang Pilipino. Although nag-agree ako dun sa sinabi niyang ibigay mo yung kisa kang mag-tax, ibigay mo yung pera sa bulsa ng Pilipino. At sila, alam nila kung saan nila gagamitin yun. Yun nga lang, kasi consumer-led tayo, yung mga nasa poverty threshold, nakakita ka ng bahay nila, kompleto sa TV, sa singalong, parang may kailangang remedyohan para hindi ang growth nila ay dependent sa acquisition ng commercial goods. Dapat ang growth nila is measured to ang anak ko ba, napapakain ko, nutritious ba, ako ba pag nagkasakit, pwede akong pumunta sa ospital. So yung sa akin malaking bagay yung social safety nets eh. Kung hindi mo mailalagay yon, ngayong nag-uumpisa ka, mahirap mo yung gawin sa pagtapos ng term mo. Si Duterte, sinubukan nila, nagkaroon ng pandemya. Umabot na tayo ng 22 na inherit eh. Umabot na tayo ng mga 17, kaso nagkaroon ng pandemya, kaya balik na ulit tayo sa 20. Anong gagawin natin doon? Siguro yung, kasi tayo, kaya nating makipaglaban eh, sa, kung ano man yung ibigay sa atin ng sistema. Pero yung mga nandun sa baba natin, yun ang kailangan nating matulungan para at least ako parati kong sinasabi, in my lifetime, nakatulong ako. Kasi ayaw mo naman na palaki ng palaki ang mahihirap sa ating lipunan dahil paglaki ng mahihirap sa lipunan, pag magkaroon ng issues ng injustice, ng equality, ng equity, at kung minsan yun ang nagiging rason. Tingnan mo si Sri Lanka, nagkagulo. May isang bansa rin sa South Africa, nagkakagulo. Dahil nga, yung fairness of the system is now being questioned. Hindi pa nga natin pinapasok yung SDG na ninumbrahan ng UN, no? Na ito ang tamang pamaraan para mag-develop. So maraming kailangang i-balanse, pero ako always defend and protect and help those who are marginalized. Alam ko naging bastardized na yung marginalized sector, pero kailangan natin tuunan doon ang tulong kasi sila yung hindi kayang tumayo on their own.
Ma'am, ramdam ko kayo, ma'am. Ramdam ko kayo dyan.
Ramdam mo, kadilawan ko.
Ramdam ko kayo dyan, ma'am. What I am after is that I think that we can arrive at a compromise wherein these social safety nets should be in place, but they shouldn't be as expansive, they shouldn't be as intensive to the point that they become social hammocks. Kasi di ba, we consider safety net.
Anong pinagkaiba ng safety net at hammock?
People can be, when you have a safety net, like a social safety net, that catches people who fall into transitory poverty and allow them to get a leg up in order to get back on their feet, so to speak. But it shouldn't be strong enough, it shouldn't be expansive enough to the point that people can abuse it. A person falls into hard times, he will be caught by the social safety net. I am caught by the social safety net. I will now recline and live off the government.
Agree naman ako doon.
So that's the delicate balancing act that is necessary in ensuring that I think that while there is this responsibility that the government takes on to help those who fall or who stumble, who are unable to get back on their feet, so to speak, or unable to get into the formal economy. They lack access to opportunities. They have these social safety nets, but these supposed safety nets should not be vulnerable to abuse.
That's right.
So, and I think that apart from that, going back to my earlier point, and to your earlier point, that I think that it's also time to use more sophisticated instruments when we are looking at people who require help. At this day and age, there are so many technologies, there are so many strategies, statistical, scientific strategies to pin down those people who are truly in need of help, not just some arbitrary cutoff. Because when you consider the literature, the extant literature surrounding the often used poverty threshold, yung poverty, it's still emanating from the dollar a day poverty threshold of decades ago, and that is a one-dimensional. It's a low resolution kind of metric, and it doesn't capture the breadth, the multidimensionality of poverty. And I think with the technology that is at hand right now, particularly front-facing agencies like the DSWD, DOH, DepEd should have these kinds of competencies in identifying the households, the individuals that are truly in need of government assistance, in order, of course, to maximize the limited resources of the government. Because at the end of the day, the budget of the government is limited by what the taxpayers can afford. We can't keep on insisting on the taxpayers to bear a heavier and heavier burden. It's not, the government doesn't just make money out of thin air. Even if it does print money, even if it does sell bonds, or buy bonds, even in its monetary policy operations, it's still affecting the money, the amount of money in the system, and that has very real effects on how much money people hold.
In relation to that, David mentioned data. That is why the national IT system is crucial. If you're unable to roll this out, there'll be several IDs that will proliferate. One of which would be the local ID system. When you look at the local ID model, Makati is from womb to tomb ang kanilang tulong based on the use of data. Now, there was a time, probably Ramos' time, where there was a Club 20, poorest of the poor provinces. Whatever happened to that? Those matrices were made there. Are we saying now that so many of the Club 20 have been retired and are better off? Or are we saying there are new ones going in? That stopped after Ramos. There are very good matrices that were introduced during his time, but are now non-existent. So are we going back to that level of intricacies when it comes to data analytics? The other really is matching it with the ground data. Ground may be different from what we analyze it in NEDA or in PSA. So again, we're talking here of the community-based monitoring system. No, it's mandated that every local government unit should have their CBMS. So my question is, how many actually had their CBMS?
In-implement ba yun?
Oo, di ba?
Magandang tanongin yun.
Alam niyo ho ba, ang CBMS ang basehan ng ELA, Executive Legislative Agenda sa local government.
Baka pwede niyo muna ipaliwanag. Ano ba yung CBM?
Ang CBS, city-based, community-based monitoring system. Ano po yun? Yun po ay isang questionnaire na ginawa ng PSA na minamandohan ng mga local government units to do a census. Census sa
Okay ba yung
community.
survey tsaka census?
Ang survey deep state. Diba? Ang census lahat. Okay? So, imagine niyo ho kung ang isang probinsya ay nakagawa ng census. Alam mo yung plano, alam mo yung problema. So, makakatama yung solusyon na gagawin mo. Hindi yung, maganda itong solusyon kasi popular. Maganda itong solusyon, kopyahin natin sa ibang LGUs. No, sayang po yung ating pondo bilang taxpayers kung shoot from the hip ang gagawing planning ng local government units. Again, may windfall ang local government units ay itong taon na ito. Yung Mandanas doctrine ay ibababa. Yung ng iba ang sabi nga sa akin, ma'am, wala na yan, nagastos na namin ng eleksyon. Ay paano ho tayo ngayon kung ang Mandanas, yung pondong galing sa Mandanas, nagastos na. So marami hong balancing act ang pagiging pangulo sa bansang ito, kahit saang bansa, kailangan ka magbalanse. Pero dun sa balanse, huwag mo kakalimutan yung iyong base. Kasi yung base mo, kaya ka nandyan sa posisyon na yan dahil sa bumoto sa'yo. At parate ang pinapayo namin noon, ang isang politikong magaling sa pagsisilbi sa bayan, yung base na lumalaki. Which means, yung dati mong kalaban ay sa'yo na. Gusto yung trabaho mo. Gusto yung programa mo. Kaya lumalaki. Kaya hindi ho mahirap ang re-election. Pero sa Pangulo ho, wala hong re-election. One term lang tayo. Kaya nga parati kong sinasabi, this is it. Hindi ka makakabalik to say, sorry nagkamali ako, ulitin natin. Hindi ho katulad ng congressman, ang congressman 3 terms. total of 9 years. Ang senador, 2 terms, consecutive terms, total of 12 years. Marami silang panahon para isaayos ang kanilang political life. Ang Pangulo ho at ang Vice Pangulo, isang shot lang yun. Tama ang rollout mo, nag-launch ka, maswerte ka. Dahil sa 6 na taon, ikaw ay gragraduhan ng publiko na sang-ayon kami sa ginawa mo. Magkamali ka at hindi ka mag-launch, maiinip ang taong bayan sa iyo. So yung mga ganong balanse, sa liderato, oo, sinasabi ho natin, may kanya-kanyang estilo. Pero may common ho dyan. Kung kailangan ka magdesisyon ka. Huwag kang matakot dahil yan ang challenge ng liderato. For you to seize the moment and make that decision for us.
At nabanggit nga ni Ma'am na igagrado ng publiko ang mga gawa ng gobyerno. At kami rin, igagrade din namin ang mga pahayag ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos Jr. mamaya pagkatapos ng SONA. Again, ito yung pre-SONA program namin. Pwede niyong panoorin yung live stream dito rin, galing sa Batasan Pambansa. After nung SONA, mag-converge kami dito at magpapakita kami ng mga interesting na statements dun sa 1 to 2 sentences dun sa SONA ni Pangulong Marcos at magbibigay kami ng 1, 2, or 3 star rating. Ano, babalikan yun namin mamaya pero nakalimutan kong banggitin sa simula ng programa. Publiko sa SONA, no? So, napakarami na kaming sinabi pero gusto rin marinig yung mga pahayag ninyo ang ating mga viewers. Kaya kung saan man kayo nanonood sa Facebook, sa YouTube, mag-comment po kayo doon kung ano yung mga gusto nyong marinig kay Pangulong Marcos sa kanyang SONA or habang nagsasona, habang nanonood kayo, pwede rin kayo mag-comment na ay nagustuhan ko itong sinabi niya, hindi ko nagustuhan yung sinabi niya. At susubukan namin basahin yung ibang comments niyo dito on our live stream. So yun, ang ganda.
Siguro pag-usapan natin yung mga officers.
Yes, yeah.
Oo, yung kanina.
Kaya din kami na late konti kanina sa simula ng aming live stream. Around that time, kakatapos lang nung first session ng House of Representatives. As you know, on the morning of the SONA, the Senate and the House convened separately to elect the officers of their respective chambers of Congress. So, Ma'am Malu, siguro simulan natin sa Senado, no? Sino yung mga nahalal na officers ng ating Senado?
Really, walang supresa ang nangyari. Si Senate President Mig Subiri ang nahalal. Ang majority floor ay si Senator Joel Villanueva. At ang SecGen, ang tradisyon naman kasi sa Senado kung sino yung Chief of Staff mo, yun ang nagiging SecGen. So, ang SecGen ngayon sa Senado ay si Attorney Bantug na dating Chief of Staff ni Senator Mig Subiri. Ang medyo twist doon ay yung minority. Kasi 4 ang hindi bumoto kay Senate President Subiri. Ito ay ang dalawang magkapatid na Cayetano, si Senator Coco Pimentel at si Senator Risa Hontiveros. No? So ang tumatayong minority ay si Risa Hontiveros. Dahil after the session kaninang umaga, si Senator Alan Cayetano nagsabi na hindi daw sila majority, hindi daw sila minority magkapatid, sila ay independent. No? What that means is it's going to be very, very hard to get a majority. In the Senate, you're being a super majority because of the results of the election may not hold water in the Senate because there are actually 4. You need 13, right? Majority in the Senate. So there are actually 4 who would not be with the majority. But I was so surprised with the characterization of Senator Alan Cayetano that they are independent. The Cayetanos are independent because unless the rules have been amended, I know for a fact that there are only 2 classes of citizens in the Senate. You're either with the minority or with the majority. So being independent is, I do not know how this will run in the 19th Congress, specifically in the Senate.
Nangyari ba yan ito?
Never
Parang
eh.
hindi pa, no?
Wala akong
Sa Senate,
sa
wala
Senate
pa.
wala akong na-experience na kasi sa Senado dahil 24 lang sila, clear ka agad sino ang majority, sino ang minority. Hindi ka bumoto sa majority, ikaw na ang minority. Bahala ngayon kayong mag-elect among yourselves kung sino. Pero ito, parang hindi ko maintindihan na parang abstain ba yung independent?
Parang abstain yata
Kasi,
silang apat. Ang alam ko, nag-abstain yung apat.
Nag-abstain.
Pero si Sen Pimentel and Sen Risa, sila
clear
na
na
yung naging
minority.
minority.
Oo.
Tapos may manifestation pa yata yung dalawang senators, Cayetano senators na parang hindi sila kasama.
Oo, yeah. So, ako yung nagugulat dun sa ganun twist. Kasi, kung titingnan mo ang takbo ng politika sa atin, kung sino ang presidente, nagkakaroon tayo ng monolith, yung malaking, higanteng partido na tuwing eleksyon nagbabago. Nakita natin KBL, NDP, Lakas. So talaga nagsasama-sama sila for the benefits that will accrue to a member pag nandun ka sa majority party. So hindi ko alam kung paano ito, lalo na sa hatian ng committee. Kasi sila ba'y bibigyan? Kung chairman sila, sila ba'y magde-defend ng budget? Mahirap sa Senado dahil 24. Ngayon, sa House, natutuwa ako na kumaunti ang deputy speakers. Hindi ko alam kung reform measure ito, no, David? 6 na lamang po ang deputy speakers.
Pero sino muna yung speaker?
Okay. Ang speaker.
Wala kasing ka-surprise-surprise.
Wala
sino
na
ang
surpresa eh. Parang ang korte nga eh. Parang umabot sila hanggang tanghali. Pero alam na ng lahat.
Ilang buwan na rin parang nagsaserve na rin si
diba?
Speaker Martin Romualdez
ng Leyte. So, nakakatuwa ito sa mga Bisaya at sa mga taga Leyte dahil ngayon meron na naman silang speaker. Ang huli yata si Speaker Niguez. I'm not sure if I'm correct with that. Pero matagal bago nagkaroon ng taga Leyte speaker. Okay? So, under niya, ang deputy speakers binigyan ng bukod tanging pagtingin at paggalang sa former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. Siya ay hinirang na senior deputy speaker. Tapos ang sunod-sunod na deputy speakers are si Congressman Isidro Ungab ng Mindanao, si Congressman Bobby Puno ng Antipolo, he represents Luzon, si Congresswoman, batang-bata, Camille Villar is now the Deputy Speaker for NCR, and then Deputy Speaker Christine Singson Mehan. I think she is from Visayas, and of course, Deputy Speaker Raymond Democrito Mendoza, who was elected as a member of the party list of the UCP. Nakakatuwa rin na ang majority floor leader is someone from Zamboanga City, si Congressman Manix Delipe, no? At ang SecGen nila ay si Reginald Velasco, an old hand from Lakas. So he is now back to Lakas. He started in Lakas, joined the NUP, and is now back as a Secretary General. So from ilan nga uli David ang Deputy Speaker?
Mahigit 30 po yun.
Mahigit na 30, no? Biro niyo yan. Ngayon, 6 na lang. O di ibig sabihin yan, medyo may disiplina ngayon ang ating House of Reps dahil from kung sino-sinong Deputy Speaker ngayon, talagang maliit na lamang ang ginawa. Kung tatandaan po natin, nung panahon ng dating Presidente Edralin Marcos, ang Deputy Speaker ay 2 lamang. Hindi umabot ng 3. Umabot ng 3 nung nagkaroon na ng Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. Tapos yung iba nang hingi na ng NCR. So, padami na ng padami. Ito magandang simula ng House of Representatives sa 19th Congress na pinangunahan ni Speaker Martin Romualdez. Nakakatutuwa rin dahil ang nanay niya nandun. Oo, so nakita nung I guess this is full circles for certain politicians. Naalis, nabahiran ng pangalan, pero makikita mo yung nanay, halos ang embrace kay Speaker Martin, gano'n na lamang. Siguro, kung titingnan natin ang kasaysayan ng Romualdez at Marcos, makikita natin talaga na ito yung full circles at ang hope ng tao, they will do a lot better kasi they are here to redeem the day. So, panoodin natin sila sa 19th Congress kasi marami ho talagang mga issues na dadalhin sa Kongreso dahil ang ating pong Pangulo, hindi naman yung katulad ni Duterte na do something and find legal support. Ito find the legal basis before I make that decision.
Pero di ba ma'am, pinag-usapan natin kanina, wala pang minority leader sa House.
Ay, oo, nakakatuwa yan ha. Ngayon lang ho sa aking experience binasa ni Sec. Jen Velasco, tinatawagan ang mga hindi bumoto kay Speaker Martin Romualdez na magkita-kita tayo ng 2:00 para pag-usapan kung sino ang minority. So, ako, ang sense ko, hindi galaw ng supermajority ito. Usually, napapag-usapan na yan eh. Kaya ako sinasabi parate, bago dalhin sa plenary, pinag-usapan na kung lulusot ba yung panukalang batas o hindi, o ito ang magtatanong, ikaw ang kukura, may mga ganung usapan. Ito ho, sa House, mukhang hindi pa nag-meet ang minority o hindi talaga pinakailman ng majority kung sino yan. By default, hindi kayo bumoto sa akin, hindi kayo maghalal na kung sino minority. Maalala po ninyo kung nakita nyo nung tinawag si Edsel Lagman, ngayon ay balik siya uli bilang kongresista, sinabi niya na hindi siya boboto kay Martin Romualdez dahil he represents the true and real opposition. So let's see if he will get that minority role and those who voted against or did not vote for would stay kindly to a leadership by Edsel Lagman.
You two are, since ang usapan naman natin ngayon ay ito po sa Kongreso, you're two legis policy buffs. I'm sure meron kayong mahabang wish list sa mga batas na sana may pasa ngayong 19th Congress. Kung ano yung number one bill, yung pinakamahalagang bill na dapat may pasa. Except for the budget kung hindi kasama yung gaan. Aside from the gaan na pinapasa naman every year, ano yung pinakagusto mong sana ipasa ngayong 19th Congress?
Yung gusto ko, hindi mangyayari yun. Mababang income.
Bakit hindi mangyayari yun?
Well, for starters,
At income tax para kanino? Individual?
For individuals primarily because we've already had
Di ba hindi nag-charge dun sa 80,000 and below? Yung government employees?
ma'am,
13th month.
ma'am, I would say that for me, this is not something that is even on the table, and I don't think that given the budgetary constraints, given the concerns about the size of the government, I don't think that this will happen anytime soon. But I think that it's time that the government should consider reducing income tax rates and looking at broadening the tax base. Because if you consider the statistics, despite the growth of the Philippine economy over the past several decades, the continuing maturation of the Philippine economy, so to speak, yung tinatawag nating mahirap noon, hindi na yun yung mahirap ngayon. Yeah, and
Saka yung middle class, ang laki na.
There's this need to reassess, reconsider the middle class, the needs of the middle class, the lower middle class. And I think that with more people entering the formal economy, with incomes rising across the board, the tax burden that has long been borne by a very narrow proportion of Filipinos should be broadened. More people can help carry the burden. And I think that this is also a way to spur economic growth in the sense that if you give the middle class more disposable income, they will spend more. This would result in more money circulating in the economy. There would be more economic opportunities. And as they so frequently say, the rising tide lifts up all boats. So it's this kind of I would think this is a low hanging fruit in the sense that you reduce the income tax, broaden the tax base, you help the drivers of the Philippine economy, which I think not just in the future, not just in the near future, but I think that even at this point, the middle class, which includes the lower middle class, are now in a very good position to drive the economy forward.
Question, are you in favor of a flat tax?
Yes, ma'am.
Oo, kasi yan, dati linalabi namin 10%.
Yes, ma'am.
And then umabot yan kay Senator Recto. At first he was laughing and I said, bakit? Di ba progressive? 10% is progressive
This is-
because it goes
Exactly, ma'am.
against...
That's one of that's a very very good point, ma'am. When you consider the I'm gonna call it propaganda when they name the progressive tax rate. When you consider progressive tax rate, it sounds very nice. It sounds it's a progressive tax rate.
Egalitarian, no?
It
Pero
places it
actually-
in such a way that if you oppose a progressive tax, you're regressive. But when you consider a progressive tax, it's actually it can be argued as unfair because the more you earn, the higher your tax rate. But when you consider the flat tax, when everyone is paying 10%, it is still the case that the people who earn more still pay more because 100,000, 10% of that is 10,000. So a person earning 100,000 will still end up paying more than a person earning 50,000. But from a perspective now, everyone is paying their fair share of 10%. But if you have your quote unquote progressive tax rate, all of a sudden, if you're earning 100,000, you have to pay 20%, 30%, as opposed to someone earning 50,000. So you're actually taxing the efficiency of the person. A person who is earning more, who is working more, who is putting in more work, is being penalized for his industry. And I think that is one of the reasons why I am in favor of a flat tax rate because you're no longer disincentivizing hard work. Because, ay, ba't pa ako magtatrabaho? Ba't ko hahabulin yung promotion na yan? Ikakainin lang naman ng tax.
That's right.
So, okay na ako dito. But if we have a flat tax rate, again, go back to the Laffer curve. If you earn more, you'll still end up paying more, but you'll still enjoy the benefits of working more. Now, you work for this position, you work for this income, you get to enjoy more of it. And I think another very important, this shouldn't be understated, it makes it far easier to pay taxes. You no longer have to go through the less administrative burden. It's easier to just file your income tax. Oh, I earn X amount, just take 10% of that. Tapos, much easier to administer. And you also gain savings by reducing the overhead necessary to implement, enforce various tax regimes. And with that, with the reduction of the implicit cost of filing complicated tax returns, you're also reducing the incentive to cheat your tax na parang, okay, so I just have to pay 10%. Hindi ko na kailangan magbayad ng 30, 40, 50%. I'm less inclined to avoid taxes. So the incentive to engage in illicit activities.
Sorry, David, what you're saying is not avoiding tax, it's evading.
Oh, okay.
Very
Avoiding
tax
slash
evasion, tax avoidance are two different things. Pwede sa batas yung tax avoidance. Ibig sabihin, magaling yung CPA mo o yung abogado mo. Tax evasion, krimen po yan, wag natin.
Well,
Clarification.
having said that, that means that it's also helpful for the middle class who would not have the capacity to hire a talented CPA to shield their disposable income. So the beneficiaries of these are the hardworking lower middle class who are earning enough to pay taxes, but not high enough to be able to afford someone to give them tax shields.
Yung labi natin yan, ha? Ako, pabor dyan. Basta 10%. Ang hirap ako kwentahin yung 12%, parati may butan.
Opo nga.
10, 15, napakadali.
Pero ang comment ko lang dun, siguro kailangan ng constitutional reform bago maitalaga yung flat income tax.
Bakit? Progressive naman yun eh.
It's,
Progressive based on the base.
I think that's going to sound medyo regressive.
Uniform,
That is a regressive
10%.
tax. Not saying that's good or bad, because David, yun yung ano niya. Pero nakalagay din as with many other things related sa economy natin in our 1987 Constitution na siguro kailangan i-revisit pa at
Sa akin, ang gusto ko, ma seriously mapag-usapan ang constitutional change o
Oh.
revision.
perfect na
Sa
segment pala.
parliament at saka federal, yung federal siguro naka-timeline, yung parliament madali kasi nakita natin yung pandemya. Ang kahalagahan na nag-uusap ang executive at legislative at nagtutulungan. Pero dun sa isang, ayan, okay, madali na lang, dun sa panukalang batas, land use. Bakit? 8 Congress pa ho yung pending hanggang ngayon hindi napapasa dahil sa isang senador. Ayan ha, ma'am, huwag kang magalit sa akin. Kailangan ng bansa ang land use.
Okay, ma'am, just to add, si PBM nag-landing na. So just to add, with regards to land use, I think we also have to reassess yung land reform when it comes to agriculture, because one of the key constraints holding back the Philippine agricultural sector is the lack of economies of scale. If we want to unlock the productivity of the Philippine agricultural sector, we need economies of scale.
At siguro pagbalik natin, no, pwede natin ituloy yung diskurso na ito. But for now, it appears that President Bongbong Marcos' chopper has just landed at the Pataasan Pambansa complex in Quezon City. So without further ado, we'll take a short, well, hindi naman short, a bit of a long break, no? Sasamahan po namin kayo, papanoorin din namin ang unang SONA ni President Bongbong Marcos. You can watch here dito sa ating live stream. I-linkin na namin yung official feed of the government. Tapos, but please stay tuned until after the SONA address. Magbabalik kaming nila Malu at David at i-grade din naman namin ang mga naging pahayag ni Pangulong Marcos sa una niyang SONA. So, we'll be back in about an hour and a half dito sa PUBLiKO sa SONA 2022.
State of the Nation Address 2022, ang unang SONA ng Pangulong Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr., ika-17 Presidente ng Republika ng Pilipinas. SONA 2022.
May we request everybody to sit down. Please sit down. Nobody should be standing at this time. Protocol officers, please see to it that everybody is seated. Thank you. Thank you for taking your seats. Kayo po dyan sa dulo, pwede ba po maupo kayo dyan? Lahat ng congressmen at senators, nakikiusap po ang PSG na maupo ho tayo lahat. Please, again, take your seats.
State of the Nation Address 2022, ang unang SONA ng Pangulong Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr., ikalabing-pitong presidente ng Republika ng Pilipinas. SONA 2022.
maintain its independence. Filipino spirit.
Ang ating mga kababayan.
We, the Filipino people.
Side by side.
In government system and tradition.
Emerging market in the region.
Buhay na ang Pilipinas.
The land of promise.
At sakripisyo ng bawat isa.
This is a historic moment for us all. You, the people, have spoken, and it is resounding. Sa pangarap na maging mapayapa ang ating bansa, ang pangarap nyo ay pangarap ko. Have hope. The sun also rises like it did today and as it will tomorrow. And as surely as that, we will achieve the country all Filipinos deserve. A country that, in almost every sense, is you. Now imagine what you and government can achieve together. Our future we decide today. Yesterday cannot make that decision anymore, nor can tomorrow delay it. The sooner we start, the surer and quicker the prospect of achieving our future. Never forget, we are Filipinos. One nation, one republic, indivisible. At pinakinggan ko ang tinig ninyo na ang sinisigaw ay pagkakaisa, pagkakaisa, pagkakaisa.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Republic of the Philippines, His Excellency Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr.
On the part of the Senate, the joint session is called to order. On the part of the House of Representatives, the joint session is called to order. Please rise for the singing of the Philippine National Anthem, to be led by the Samiwang Singers of Ilocos Norte.
Bayang magiliw, pero silang manay, alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupi, di ka pasisigil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy, sa langit mong baghaw, may dilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tamo, ay nanagniningning, ang bituin at araw ng kailan, pang may di magdidilim, lupa ng araw narwal, atit o sinta, buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya dapat ay mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Please remain standing for the nation's prayer.
Aming manlilikha, tagapagbigay buhay at liwanag ng sangkatauhan. Salamat po sa iyong pagtangkilig at paggabay sa bansang Pilipinas. Salamat po sa kalayaang magtipon tulad ngayon ayon sa talaga ng aming saligang batas.
Salamat po na kami dahil sa kabayanihan, pagsisikap at sakripisyo ng aming mga ninuno at mga bayani ay nabuo upang maging isang bansa at isang malayang demokratikong republika. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin.
Pagpalain niyo po ang aming pagtitipon ngayon upang aming dinggin, liwanagan at suriin ang kalagayan ng bayan, ang state of the nation. At upang italaga sa inyong gabay at tangkilik ang mga magiging hakbangin ng pamahalaan sa pangunguna ng aming Pangulo, Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr.
Biyayaan niyo po kami, mga mamamayan at mga namumuno, ng patuloy at tumitibay bilang pagsunod sa inyong mabuti at magandang kalooban.
Kasihan niyo po ang aming Pangulo at ang pangkat ng kanyang mga tagapangasiwa, ang aming mga mambabatas, ang aming mga hukom, at ang mga tagapagpairal ng katarungan, ng dalisay at iba yung kaliwanagan, karunungan, katuwiran, at katapatan sa kanilang banal na tungkulin.
Patuloy niyo aming
Turuan
at
patayin kaming lahat na mga mamamayan at mga pinuno tungo sa dakilang pagkakaisa na magbubunga ng iba yung kapayapaan, kaayusan, kaunlaran, kasaganaan, at kasiyahan ng lipunang Pilipino.
Magpatuloy po tayo sa personal na panalangin. Mangyari ang bawat isa ay tahimik na manawagan sa may kapal.
of GDP in 2028. The medium-term fiscal strategy of this administration seeks to attain short-term macro-fiscal stability while remaining supportive of the country's economic recovery and to promote medium-term fiscal sustainability. Furthermore, and more importantly, fiscal policy aims to bring together the national government's resources so that these are mobilized and utilized in order to gain the maximum benefit and the high multiplier effects for our economy. Measurable the following headline numbers. These are based on forecasts that are consistent with the guiding principles of coherence of strategies, policy discipline, and fiscal sustainability. 6.5 to 7.5% real gross domestic product growth in 2022. 6.5 to 8% real GDP growth annually between 2023 and 2028. 9% or single-digit poverty rate by 2028. 3% national government deficit to GDP ratio by 2028. Less than 60% national government debt to GDP ratio by 2025. At least 4,256 US dollar income per capita and the attainment of upper middle income status by 2024. The aforementioned headline goals summarize the objectives of this medium-term fiscal strategy being submitted to Congress for its adoption and concurrence to the concurrent resolution by the Senate and House of Representatives. Once adopted, the MTFF will become an anchor for the annual spending and financing plan of the national government and Congress when preparing the annual budget and undertaking related appropriation activities. It is therefore a forward-looking document that extends beyond the traditional 3-year horizon to reach 6 years, coinciding with the 6-year coverage of the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028. The MTFF also promotes transparency and credible commitment to pursue the indicated social macroeconomic goals that optimize the government budget. Medium-term growth targets and the assumptions regarding key macroeconomic variables underpin the medium-term fiscal plan. The recent past and the COVID-19 pandemic has beset the macroeconomic environment with challenges and a series of external shocks. Inflation has accelerated in recent months due largely to significant increases in international prices of oil and other key commodities. Still, the economic growth momentum remains firm, as demonstrated by the strong 2022 first quarter GDP growth at 8.3%. However, the recovery process from the impact of the pandemic is still ongoing amid elevated uncertainty in the international economic environment. Revisions in the macroeconomic assumptions incorporate these challenges and most recent economic developments, leading to upward adjustments in the following: inflation rate for 2022 to 2023, foreign exchange rate for 2023 to 2024. Dubai crude oil price is expected to settle at 90 to 110 US dollars per barrel in 2022, 80 to 100 US dollars per barrel in 2023, and 70 to 90 US dollars per barrel from 2024 onwards, as oil supply is expected to catch up and stabilize over the medium term. The Philippine peso is projected to average between 51 to 53 pesos per US dollar in 2022 and 51 to 55 pesos per US dollar from 2023 onwards due to aggressive monetary policy tightening by the US Federal Reserve, market aversion amid the Russian-Ukraine conflict, and again, increased global oil prices. Lastly, exports of goods are expected to grow by 7% in 2022 and 6% from 2023 to 2028. On the other hand, imports of goods are projected to grow by 18% in 2022, 6% in 2023, and 8% from 2024 to 2028. I have instructed the NEDA to coordinate with other agencies and work on the Philippine Development Plan for 2023 to 28 and to submit to me the complete blueprint and progress of its implementation not later than year-end. One of the main drivers of our push for growth and employment will be in the agricultural sector. With regard to food supply, we are confronted by a two-pronged problem, that which will hit us in the short term and that which will hit us in the long term. Tayo ay nahaharap sa mga problemang kagyat nating mararamdaman at mga hamong pangmatagalan. Ang mga suliraning agarang mararamdaman ng ating mga kababayan ay ang posibilidad ng tuloy-tuloy na pagsipa ng presyo ng pagkain at kakulangan sa supply ng ating pagkain. Upang masuportahan ang mabimili para mapanatili ang kanilang purchasing power o kapangyarihan sa pagbili, isinapinal ng Department of Agriculture ang planong taasan ang produksyon sa susunod na panahon ng pagtanim o planting season sa pamamagitan ng tulong pinansyal at teknikal. Magbibigay tayo ng pautang habang mas ilalapit natin sa sektor ng agrikultura ang hindi gaanong mahal na farm inputs na bibilhin na ng bulto ng gobyerno. Kabilang dito ang abono, pestisidyo, mga punla, feeds, fuel subsidy, at ayuda para sa mga karapat-dapat na benepisyaryo. Para sa pangmatagalang solusyon, itataas natin ang produksyon ng mga kalakal at produktong pang-agrikultura. At para magawa ito, pagtitibayin natin ang tinatawag na value chain na nagsisimula sa mga magsasaka hanggang sa mga namimili. May mga bahagi ng value chain na sa ngayon ay kanya-kanya ang operasyon. Pagtibayin natin ang koordinasyon ng iba't ibang bahagi nito. Ang pagsasaliksik para sa mga makabagong paraan at ng pagtatanim at pag-aalaga ng hayop ay masusing gagabayan ng Department of Agriculture. Ang produksyon ng farm inputs o mga kakailanganin ng mga magsasaka sa pagpapalago ng kanilang sakahan ay ating iaayon sa mga hamong dala ng climate change at global warming. Mahigpit na pagsusuri ang gagawin ng ating mga eksperto tungo dito. Ang mga pautang at financial assistance sa mga magbubukid at mangingisda ay magiging institusyon at patakaran ng aking administrasyon. Ipapaprioridad natin ang modernisasyon ng mga sakahan sa pamamagitan ng mga makabagong teknolohiya para sa ating mga magsasaka. Atin palalawakin ang mga palaisdaan, babuyan at manukan. Lahat ng ito gagamitan ng siyensya para tumaas ang produksyong agrikultural. Maging ang post-production at processing ay susuportahan ng pamahalaan. Gagawa tayo ng network, national network ng farm-to-market road upang mas mabilis na mailakbay ng mga magsasaka ang kanilang mga produkto sa mga pamilihan. At gagawa tayo ng mga paraan upang maramdaman ng mga mamimili ang pagluluwag ng presyo ng mga produktong pagkain sa kayang halaga, gaya ng muling pagbubuhay ng mga Kadiwa Center. Hindi ito magagawa sa isang araw. Hindi magagawa sa isang buwan o isang taon lamang. Ngunit, kailangan na natin simulaan ngayon. Ang Agrarian Reform Program ay dapat magpatuloy. Agrarian reform is not only about acquisition, but also about support services and distribution. To assist this, I intend to issue an executive order to impose a one-year moratorium on the payment of land amortization and interest payments. This is included in Republic Act number 11469, or the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act. A moratorium will give the farmers the ability to channel the resources in developing their farms, maximizing their capacity to produce, and propel the growth of our economy. Civil society organizations also support this because it will unburden the farmers of their dues and be able to focus on improving farm productivity. Congress must also pass a law that will emancipate the agrarian reform beneficiaries from the agrarian reform debt burden, thereby amending Section 26 of Republic Act 6657. In this law, the loans of agrarian reform beneficiaries with unpaid amortization and interest shall be condoned. Layunin ng batas na ito ay burahin ang hindi mabayarang utang ng ating mga magsasaka na benepisyaryo ng agrarian reform. Agrarian reform beneficiaries who are still to receive their awarded land under the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program shall receive it without any obligation to pay any amortization. The condonation of the existing agrarian reform loan will cover the amount of 58.125 billion pesos, benefiting 654,000 agrarian reform beneficiaries and involving a total of 1.18 million hectares of awarded lands. Executive Order number 75, Series 2019, requires that all government agencies, bureaus, departments, and instrumentalities to turn over agricultural lands to qualified agrarian reform beneficiaries. At present, we have a total of 52,000 hectares of unused agricultural lands of the government, which shall now be used for distribution to the following sectors in accordance with Section 40 of the Republic Act number 6657 as amended. Thus, landless war veterans, landless surviving spouse and orphans of war veterans, landless retirees of the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police. Agricultural lands acquired under this program will be given to graduates of college degrees in agriculture who are landless. The call of the times is for the infusion of fresh and new blood in the agricultural sector. We need a new breed of farmers equipped with modern agricultural technology able to engage in sustained scientific farming that will not only increase farm yields, but also resilience in the face of climate change. They say that each brand has a story. As for the Filipino brand, ours is deeply rooted in our rich cultural heritage and the tourism sector plays an invaluable role in the promotion of the Filipino brand. Tourism is not only an important economic development tool, but the abundance of opportunities that the sector creates in terms of regular employment and even job creation at the grassroots level is undeniable. To boost our tourism industry, we will first and foremost make basic developments, such as road improvements for easier access to tourism spots. We will also upgrade our airports and create more international airports to help decongest the bottleneck in the Manila airport. We will also make it more convenient for travelers to go around the country, even to remote areas, to help promote undiscovered tourist spots. This program will be led by the Department of Tourism together with the Department of Public Works and Highways. To foster the Filipino brand is to spark our sense of pride and reaffirm our strong sense of identity. It is time to welcome the rest of the world with an enhanced Filipino brand that is unique, attractive, and creative. The creativity of the Filipino is truly world-class. We excel in arts and culture, new media, live events, avenues which generate primary and downstream jobs for our creative and talented countrymen. Unfortunately, ang mga hanap buhay na ito ang unang pinadapa ng pandemya at ang pinakahuli namang makabalik sa normal. The creative industry likewise faces many challenges, including workplace conditions, working hours, intellectual property rights, and the welfare of our beloved freelancers who were left vulnerable during the height of the pandemic. We require an institutionalized creative industry that will advance the interest of its stakeholders. Sila na nagbibigay ng kaluluwa at pagkakilala sa ating pagka-Pilipino. Protektahan natin sila. The Department of Social Welfare and Development has a large part to play in all of this. Magpapatuloy ang ating pagkalinga sa ating mga kababayan na lubos na nangangailangan. Hindi po natin sila pababayaan. Mangunguna sa pag-aagapay sa kanila ang Department of Social Welfare and Development. Utos ko sa DSWD ang mabilis na pagtugon sa pangangailangan ng mga biktima ng kalamidad at mga iba't ibang krisis. Ang mga field office nila ay inatasan na maagang maglagak ng family food packs at non-food essentials sa mga LGU, bago pa man manalasa ang anumang kalamidad. Magdadagdag tayo ng mga operation center, warehouse at imbakan ng relief goods, lalo na sa mga malalayong lugar na mahirap marating. Titiyakin natin na maayos ang koordinasyon ng DSWD at Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development nang sa ganon, madali ang pagpatupad ng Emergency Shelter Assistance Program para sa mga biktima ng kahit anong kalamidad. Pagtitibayin pa natin ang komprehensibong programang Assistance to Individuals in Crisis Situations o ang ating tinatawag na AICS para maiparating ang tulong sa mas maraming biktima. Hindi natin papahirapan ang mga biktima ng krisis na dudulog sa ahensya. Gagawin nating simple ang proseso ng paghingi at pagparating ng tulong. Dahil hindi naman dapat dinadagdagan pa ang hirap ng nararanasan ng ating mga mamamayan. Upang matiyak na mapupunta sa kwalipikadong mga pamilya ang tulong na pamahalaan sa pamamagitan na 4Ps o Pantawid Pamilya Pilipino Program, titiyakin natin na malilinis ang listahan ng benepisyaryo. Higit na sa 1 milyong pangalan na ang nakapag-graduate na sa listahan. At
Nagagalak akong mabatid na sila ay nakakatayo na sa kanilang sariling paa. Kaugnay nito ay itusan ko ang DSWD na pag-ibayuhin pa ang pagrepaso ng listahan upang maitutok ang pamimigay ng sapat na ayuda sa mga lubos na nangangailangang pamilya. Magpapatuloy ang supplemental feeding program para sa mga bata sa child development centers at supervised neighborhood play at lalo pa nating palalawakin sa taong 2023. Hindi rin natin nakakalimutan ang mga solo parents at mga nanay na nahiwalay sa kanilang mga mister dahil sa karahasan. Pagtitibayin natin ang programa sa violence against women and their children. Kabilang na ang counseling para sa mga biktima, katuwang ang ating mga LGU. Tiyakin natin na sapat ang pondo sa halos 70 residential care centers at 7 non-residential care centers para sa vulnerable sectors at persons with disabilities na sumisilong dito. Sa ating sitwasyon ng pangkalusugan, nariyan pa rin ang banta ng COVID-19. Lalo't may mga nadidiskubring bagong variant ng coronavirus. Pero hindi na natin kakayanin ang isa pang lockdown. Wala na tayong gagawing lockdown. Dapat natin balansehin ng maayos ang kalusugan at kapakanan ng ating mga mamamayan sa isang banda at ang ekonomiya naman sa kabilang banda. Nakikipagtulungan ang iba't ibang ahensya ng pamahalaan sa pag-monitor sa mga COVID-19 hospital admission upang makatiyak tayo na may sapat na kapasidad ang ating healthcare system at maiwasan ang pagsipa ng bilang ng nagkakasakit. Patuloy din ang ating vaccine booster rollout para sa ating pangkalahatang depensa. Sa ganitong paraan, kahit pa tumaas muli ang bilang ng mga COVID cases, mananatiling mababa ang bilang ng mga maospital at bilang ng mga namamatay. Sa pamamagitan nito, unti-unti rin tayong masasanay na nariyan ang virus pero hindi na seryoso ang banta sa ating buhay. Iaayon natin ang ating mga health protocols sa kung ano ang ating pangangailangan sa paglipas ng panahon at lalo pang iibayuhin ang kooperasyon kasama ang pribadong sektor upang tumaas pa ang kumpiyansa ng mga mamumunuhan nang sa gayon ay bumalik na tayo sa full capacity, lalo-lalo na ang ating mga negosyo. Pagbubutihan pa natin ang pagpapakalat ng tamang impormasyon ukol sa COVID, kasama ang kahalagahan ng bakuna. Mananatili muna sa ngayon ang alert level system natin. Pinapag-aralan natin ang ibang paraan ng klasifikasyon upang mas babagay sa kasalukuyang sitwasyon, lalong-lalo na sa pagbabago ng COVID. Sa pakikipagtulungan ng Kongreso, itatatag natin ang ating sariling Center for Disease Control and Prevention at ang isang Vaccine Institute. Magtatayo tayo ng dagdag na mga health center at ospital. But beyond the issues that the pandemic has brought, the need for a stronger healthcare system is self-evident. We must bring services, medical services to the people and not wait for them to come to our hospitals and healthcare centers. Napakinabangan natin ng husto ang malalaking specialty hospital gaya ng Heart Center, Lung Center, Children's Hospital at National Kidney and Transplant Institute. Kaya maliwanag na hindi lang dapat dito sa National Capital Region kundi maging sa ibang parte ng bansa.
Maliwanag na hindi lamang dapat dito lamang sa National Capital Region, kundi maging sa ibang parte ng bansa, kailangan magdagdag ng ganitong uri ng mga pagamutan. Bukod dito, upang mailapit natin ang healthcare system sa taong bayan, nang hindi sila kailangang pumunta sa sentro ng kanilang bayan, lalawigan o region, ay maglalagay tayo ng mga clinic, mga RHU, na pupuntahan ng mga doktor, nurse, midwife, medtech, isang beses, dalawang beses sa isang linggo. Nang sa ganun, magiging mas madali sa may karamdaman na magpapagamot ng hindi na kailangan magbiyahe ng malayo. One of the cornerstones of a strong healthcare system is the provision of competent and efficient medical professionals. We will exert all efforts to improve the welfare of our doctors, our nurses, and other medical frontliners. Dapat din tayong magkaroon ng sapat na supply ng gamot na kinakailangan sa pang-araw-araw ng ating mga mamamayan. Sinimulan ko na ang pakikipag-usap sa mga kumpanya ng gamot dito sa Pilipinas at sa ibang bansa. Hinihikayat natin na buksan nila ang merkado upang bumaba ang presyo ng gamot. Halimbawa, kung mas marami ang mas murang generic o hindi branded na gamot sa merkado, mas bababa rin ang presyo dahil sa kompetisyon. Ang Department of Trade and Industry ay nakikipag-usap sa mga interesadong manufacturer ng generic drugs na papasok sa ating bansa. Inuutusan ko naman ang Philippine Competition Commission na pantay-pantay dapat at walang kartel sa hanay ng mga pharmaceutical companies. Dahil kapag bukas ang merkado, bababa ang presyo ng gamot para mapakinabangan ng ating mga mamamayan. This is one of the hard lessons that we learned when the pandemic struck, and therefore we must act on that shortcoming. In the educational sector, I believe it is time for our children to return to full face-to-face classes once again. The Department of Education, led by our highly able Vice President Sara Duterte, is now preparing for its implementation in the upcoming school year, with utmost consideration for the safety of students as we are still in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. We must ensure that our classrooms are safe for teachers, for students, and the entire academic community when they return to face-to-face classes. We continue to encourage everyone to get their booster shots in preparation for the resumption of in-person classes. This is one of the reasons I have directed the Department of Health and the Department of Interior and Local Government to undertake another rollout of booster shots. The condition and availability of schoolrooms for our students must also be addressed, again, in coordination with the Department of Public Works and Highways. Though some complications have arisen over the question of repair of school buildings in relation to the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, this will be ironed out. We have been in discussion with local government leaders, governors, and mayors in the last few weeks to determine with the LGUs what is actually practicable, what functions belong to the LGUs, and what belong to the national government. There have also been lengthy discussions on the continuation and viability of the K-12 school system. We are giving this careful review, and all necessary inputs and points of view are now being considered. In the longer term, We are instituting a program of refresher courses and retrainings for our teachers so they can stay abreast of the rapid growth in technology, especially in this post-pandemic world. As for the horror stories that we have heard about the poor quality of educational materials and supplies that are being given to our schools, this must end. Our children must always be equipped with the best that we can provide. Ang edukasyon ay ang tangi nating pamana sa ating mga anak na hindi mawawaldas. Kaya anumang gastusin sa kanilang pag-aaral ay hindi tayo nagtitipid. Hindi rin tayo nagtatapon. And once again, I am not talking about history or what is being taught. I am talking about materials that are necessary for effective teaching in this day and age. Children now need connectivity to the internet. They need devices to use. They need computers, educational tools. So that they might participate fully in the digital community here and abroad. We must do better in the international rankings, especially when it comes to the so-called STEM subjects: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. These skills, this knowledge, are necessary for our young people to be able to compete in a highly technological and competitive world. The raw talent is there in our young people. It is up to our educational system to develop and to refine that great pool of talent. Foreign employers have always favored Filipino employees because of our command of the English language. This is an advantage that we must continue to enjoy. The internet has now become the global marketplace, not only for goods, services, but also for ideas, even extending to our own personal interactions. And the language of the internet, for better or for worse, is English. Therefore, the question of our medium of instruction must be continuously re-examined to maintain that advantage that we have established as an English-speaking people. On a related subject, we are entering an age of exponential adoption of technology. It is the fourth industrial revolution. This will be characterized by the infusion of technology into almost every facet of our lives. Breakthrough technologies in the areas of quantum computing, artificial intelligence, nanotechnologies, the Internet of Things, robotics, self-driving electric vehicles, 3D printing, virtual and augmented realities, among others, that will radically transform the way business is done. The scale and the speed at which these innovations are introduced universally into our everyday lives and activities is unprecedented in our recorded history. We cannot stand idly by. The mission of our Department of Information and Communications Technology is to identify and utilize these innovations to improve governance. It has the daunting task now of transforming our government into an agile bureaucracy that is responsive to the needs of the public. Provide good and solid data to ensure informed decision-making, as well as allow secure and seamless access to public services. The voluminous records stored in the government warehouses and archives have to be digitized. Those that are already stored in various inventories of data should be harmonized and shared across departments and agencies. Needless to say, these have to be kept in large data centers that are secure yet accessible. The national ID will play an important part in this digital transformation. For citizens to be able to seamlessly transact with government, their identity must be easily verifiable. We expect to issue 30 million physical IDs and 20 million digital IDs by the end of this year. The target is to accomplish the issuance of about 92 million IDs by the middle of next year. As the world moves into rapid digitalization, the digital divide will become more pronounced. The depth and breadth at which these technologies will be transformative in our lives is fully expected. This will open new opportunities for the creation of wealth, but will also likely create inequalities. Hence, universal connectivity will be a vital component in order to ensure that no citizen is left behind. I have therefore tasked the DICT to deploy digital connectivity across our various islands. This will be done through the implementation of the National Broadband Plan, the Common Tower Program, connecting our geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas via our Broadband ng Masa project. All relevant modes of digital transport should be utilized. These may be through a combination of terrestrial or submarine fiber optics, wireless, and even satellite technology. As our Public Service Act has opened the doors and removed the restrictions on foreign investment, we foresee an increase in direct investment of overseas players. This will translate into better quality, availability, and affordability of telecommunication services all over the country. We come now to infrastructure. The backbone of an economy is its infrastructure. The infrastructure program of the Duterte administration must not only continue, but wherever possible, be expanded. We shall confidently build on this firm foundation established by my predecessor, as it is in building an edifice. We must keep the momentum and aspire to build better, more. Necessarily, infrastructure development will remain a very high priority in our drive for growth and employment. Once again, I will not suspend any of the ongoing projects, as those have already been shown to be of benefit to the public that they serve. We will continue to study the proposals that have been made. Infrastructure development spending will be sustained at 5 to 6% of GDP. The planned expansion of infrastructure projects, I believe, would be possible if we continue to encourage the participation of the private sector in the development of our programs. Public-private partnerships, or PPPs, hold great potential for that expansion, for infrastructure development, and for innovation. Our infrastructure development is of primary importance, as it is a necessary element to improve many other sectors, to include agriculture, tourism, general economic activity, and even to governance. It is my belief also that we have missed some great opportunities to develop our rail transport system. It is clear in my mind that railways offer great potential, as it continues to be the cheapest way of transporting goods and passengers. We can build upon already existing lines by modernizing these old railway systems. There are dozens of railway projects on the ground, above the ground, below ground, not just in Manila, but in other regions, at various stages of implementation and with a combined cost of 1.9 trillion pesos. This administration is committed to finish building the current portfolio of investments, approved railway projects such as the North-South Commuter Railway System, the 33-kilometer Metro Manila Subway Project, the 147-kilometer North-South Commuter Railway System, the 12-kilometer LRT-1 Cavite Extension, the 23-kilometer MRT-7, and the common station that will connect LRT-1 MRT3, and MRT7. And beyond NCR, larger scale railway systems like the 102-kilometer Mindanao Railway Project, the Panay Railway Project, and the Cebu Railway System will be integrated as a vital part of our transport and communication systems. We will also continue to improve our roads and transportation systems in key cities throughout the country through various projects, such as the Cebu Bus Rapid Transit, Davao High Priority Bus System, Ilocos Norte Transportation Hub, the El Nido Transport Terminal. My order to the Department of Transportation, or DOTR, is really very simple. Full speed ahead. Improving our railway system, along with modernizing existing airports and seaports, will maximize our strategic location in the Pacific and connect our many islands. A key sector in our transformation plans is that of energy. Another fundamental requirement for growth and increased employment will be the availability of cheap, reliable energy. This even comes under the category of ease of doing business. If we are to attract investors, both local and foreign, to set up shop here in the Philippines. At present, our demand for energy far exceeds our reliable supply. We must increase the level of energy production. We must look at every possible option that would be appropriate for the Philippine situation. There is some room to expand our present power supply through existing power sources, but this is only to a very limited extent. We must build new power plants. We must take advantage of all the best technology that is now available, especially in the areas of renewable energy. Our search for new power sources should always be with an eye to improving the mix of the energy supply between traditional and renewable sources. The technology on renewable energy is progressing rapidly, and many of these technologies are appropriate for the Philippines. We have already begun windmill power. We are now expanding very quickly our solar power production. For both offshore and onshore wind turbines, for example, the World Bank has calculated that there is a potential for 255 gigawatts by the year of 2030. Solar power has steadily increased its efficiency in converting sunlight to electrical power, which is particularly attractive for the Philippines. Because unlike wind power, solar power is practical almost everywhere in the Philippines all year round. In the move to lowering our carbon footprint caused by energy production, our advancement to renewables will have a lead time. In the interim, natural gas will hold the key. We will provide investment incentives by clarifying the uncertain policy in upstream gas, particularly in the area close to Malampaya. This requires clarification of the processes and review of service contracts policy. I believe that it is time also to re-examine our strategy towards building nuclear power plants in the Philippines. We will comply, of course, with the International Atomic Energy Agency regulations for nuclear power plants as they have been strengthened after Fukushima. In the area of nuclear power, there have been new technologies developed that allow smaller scale modular nuclear plants and other derivations thereof. Once again, PPPs will play a part in support as funding in this period is limited. Furthermore, we must examine the entire system of transmission and distribution for the purpose of finding ways to lower the price of energy to the consumer and to industry. We must expand the network of our transmission lines while examining schemes to improve the operation of our electrical cooperatives. All this in aid of reducing energy costs, especially but not limited to households. All this impetus for development and growth we undertake within the context of accelerating climate change and extreme weather conditions. Though we are a minor contributor to climate change globally, we have the unfortunate distinction of being one of the most vulnerable countries to the effects of climate change. For the welfare of our people, it is incumbent upon us to alleviate the effects of that vulnerability. The use of renewable energy is at the top of our climate agenda. We will increase our use of renewable energy sources such as hydropower, geothermal power, solar, and wind. Geographically, we are a disaster-prone country. Capacity building for our natural disaster resiliency is therefore a must. Investment in science and technology is imperative to enable us to have accurate weather forecasts and on-time disaster alerts. Studies show that already now, many areas in the Philippines are at high risk from the rise in sea levels brought about by the increase in global temperature. We must adapt to this phenomenon with disaster-proof planning for our communities. We will also look into the precarious freshwater supply situation in the country, especially in our urban areas. Many of our water supply systems date back to the 1950s, and they must now be rehabilitated and improved. I've instructed the DNR, together with the DPWH, to explore possible partnerships with the private sector to address this crucial situation. The Philippines has excellent laws on the environment, but we have to guarantee that these laws are properly enforced. And this will require a great deal of coordination and cooperation between concerned government agencies and private stakeholders. Companies who exploit our natural resources must follow the law. We all have the responsibility to preserve this earth, for we are but custodians, and we will pass on this great treasure to future generations. There is no question that the preservation of the environment is the preservation of life. If we cannot mitigate climate change, all our plans for the economy, all our plans for our future will be for naught. Bawat Pilipino sa ibayong dagat na nagsasakripisyong lisanin ang kanyang pamilya sa Pilipinas upang maghanap buhay ay nararapat lamang magkaroon ng pamahalaang matatawag nilang tahanan habang nasa ibang bayan. Ito ang papel na gagampanan ng kagawaran ng manggagawang mandarayuhan o Department of Migrant Workers matapos itong ideklara bilang ganap na ahensya ng gobyerno ng isang taon. Ang kagawarang ito ang magsisilbing kanlungan ng ating mga kababayan sa gitna ng mundong walang kasiguruhan at mahigpit na kompetisyon. Ito ang maglalatag sa kanila ng mga oportunidad. Titiyak na ang kanilang mga hanap buhay ay tugma sa kanilang mga kasanayan. Maninigurong akma ang sahod at maayos ang kalagayan sa kanilang mga kumpanya at mga ngalaga sa kanilang mga pamilya habang sila ay nasa malayo. Gagawin natin ito sa pamamagitan ng pag-aalis ng red tape sa sistema ng pagsusulong ng digital empowerment. We shall automate the verification of contracts and issue secure overseas employment certifications that you can keep on your smartphone. I call on the Department of Migrant Workers and the DICT to make this a top priority. Tinatawagan ko rin ang Department of Foreign Affairs na makipagtulungan sa Department of Migrant Workers na tiyakin ang lahat ng mga diplomatic post ay tutulong na agarang maibalik sa trabaho ang mga ating mga overseas Filipino workers na nawalan ng hanap buhay nitong nakalipas na ilang taon. Mula sa 3 buwan ay gagawin na lang nating 3 linggo para sa isang dayuhang employer na iproseso ang mga papeles ng Pilipinas ng Pilipinong nais nitong kunin bilang empleyado. Aatasan din natin ang kagawaran ng gawing simple ang komplikadong handbook ng mga tuntunin at regulasyon para sa mga OFW. Nang sa gayon ay maging maalwan ang mga transaksyon may kinalaman sa kanilang pangingibang bansa. Mula sa handbook na may 240 seksyon ay gagawin nating pamphlet na lamang na hindi hihigit sa 100 pahina. Mahirap na nga ang buhay. Kaya naman, ayaw pa natin makitang lalo pang nahihirapan ang ating mga manggagawang mandarayuhan sa pagtupad sa kanilang mga pangarap. Para sa mga kababayan nating naiipit sa kaguluhan, inaabuso at nanganganib ang buhay, ikinagagalak kong sa ilalim ng aking pamumuno ay ilulunsad natin ang One Repatriation Command Center o ORCC. Ilalaan natin ang isang social media platform ng Department of Migrant Workers at ang hotline upang matulungan agad at maligtas sila mula sa masigit na kapahamakan. Noon, nangungutang pa ang isang ina ng bawat OFW upang sumakay ng barko para pumunta sa Maynila at mangatok sa iba't ibang ahensya para mapauwi ang anak na inaapi. Ngayon, kami na ang tatawag sa mga magulang ng OFW para sabihin sa kanila ang petsa kung kailan nila mayayakap at makakapiling ang kanilang mga anak. Sa kasalukuyan ay nakikipag-ugnayan tayo sa pamahalaan ng Saudi Arabia upang buksan muli ang deployment. Kaya natin at gagawin natin ang makipagnegosasyon na mabigyan ang ating mga kababayan doon ng tamang pasahod at mapangalagaan ang kanilang karapatan at kapakanan. Muli natin patitibayin ang respeto at pagkakaibigan ng ating dalawang bansa tulad ng namamagitan sa ating ama sa kanilang hari. Sa mga susunod na buwan ay magtutungo si Secretary Susan Opre sa Saudi Arabia upang tiyakin na may sapat na puwersang magsisiguro na mabubuksan muli ang empleo sa bansa at para maisulong ang ating kampanya laban sa human trafficking. Ngayon, para naman sa mga anak na naiwan sa Pilipinas, titiyakin ng Department of Migrant Workers sa pamamagitan ng OWA na sila ay maipapasok sa magagandang paaralan, magtuturo sa kanila ng financial literacy, mental wellness, sports, sining, kultura. Ito ay mangyayari sa pakikipagtulungan ng iba't ibang ahensya ng pamahalaan. Alagaan natin ang kabataang Pilipino sapagkat sila ang kinabukasan ng ating inang bayan. Sa ating mga kababayan na nasa ibang bansa, you deserve a home in government, not only for the money that you send home, but you are not cold tools of the economy. You deserve it for your sacrifices for our country and your perseverance and excellence in the global arena. You OFWs represent the fighting faith of the Filipinos as a nation and as a people. Let us transform your overseas journey into inspirational stories for all time. Thanks to you, our dear legislators, and of course to the man every OFW now refers to as their tatay, President Rodrigo Duterte. You passed the law that created this new home for our OFWs. On the area of foreign policy, I will not preside over any process that will abandon even 1 square inch of territory of the Republic of the Philippines to any foreign power. With respect to our place in the community of nations, the Philippines shall continue to be a friend to all, an enemy to none. The Philippines has always been open and welcoming to all our foreign friends and visitors. That is our worldview. That is our culture. But let me be clear. We are very jealous of all that is Filipino. We will be a good neighbor, always looking for ways to collaborate and cooperate with the end goal of mutually beneficial outcomes. If we agree, we will cooperate and we will work together. And if we differ, let us talk some more until we develop a consensus. After all, that is the Filipino way. But we will not waver. We will stand firm in our independent foreign policy with the national interest as our primordial guide. We commit to maintaining good relations with the rest of the world. As a matter of fact, it is my sincere belief that the need for strong bonds and collaboration among nations emerges in the direst of times, such as in a pandemic. The partnerships and alliances that we make with all will provide stability that all nations will need as we emerge into this new global economy. The Philippines will continue to promote stronger and multifaceted relationships with all our partners around the world. We are, in fact, grateful for the messages of support and offers of help that we have received from many of our friends in the international community. This has been communicated to us through the different envoys and ambassadors here in the Philippines. Such strong relationships can only be beneficial to all involved. As I am here today addressing the legislature, allow me now to propose legislation that we would like you to pass in support of these programs. 1. National Government Right Sizing Program, a reform mechanism that seeks to enhance the government's institutional capacity to perform its mandate and to provide better services while ensuring optimal and efficient use of resources. Compared to previous government reorganization efforts, the NGRP will entail a comprehensive strategic review of the functions, operations, organization, system, and processes of the different agencies, and massive and transformational initiatives in agencies concerned, such as mergers, consolidations, splitting, transfer, and even the abolition of some offices. The right sizing efforts will also involve the conduct of a comprehensive strategic review of functions, programs, and projects that will cut across various agencies. Number 2, a budget modernization bill that seeks to institutionalize a cash-based budgeting system under Executive Order number 91, Series 2019, to strengthen fiscal discipline in the allocation and use of budget resources by ensuring that every peso budgeted by the government would lead to the actual delivery of programs and projects. The full implementation of the CBS is timely and vital as the government executes response and recovery plans post-pandemic. Number 3, Tax Package 3 Valuation Reform Bill. This bill provides for the establishment of real property values and valuation standards across the country, and B, the development of real property information system that provides for the database of all real property transaction and declarations in the country. Number 4, Passive Income and Financial Intermediary Taxation Act. This seeks to reform the taxation of capital income and financial services by redesigning the financial sector taxation into simpler, fairer, more efficient, and a revenue-neutral tax system. It also represents to adopt a regionally competitive tax system. Number 5, E-Government Act, which provides for the establishment of the e-government master plan, which shall cover all e-government services and processes. Number 6, the Internet Transaction Act, or e-commerce law, which aims to establish an effective regulation of commercial activities through the internet or electronic means to ensure that consumer rights and data privacy are protected, innovation is encouraged, fair advertising practices and competition are promoted. Online transactions are secured, intellectual property rights are protected, and product standards and safety are observed. Number 7, Government Financial Institutions Unified Initiatives to Distressed Enterprises for Economic Recovery. This seeks to provide financial assistance to distressed enterprises critical to economic recovery through programs and initiatives to be implemented by the Land Bank of the Philippines, the Development Bank of the Philippines, and the Philippine Guarantee Corporation for purposes of addressing liquidity or solvency problems of MSMEs and strategically important industries to encourage their continued operation and maintain employment. Number 8, the establishment of a Medical Reserve Corps. Establishes a Medical Reserve Corps under the Health and Emergency Management Bureau of the DOH. The MRC shall be composed of licensed physicians, medical students who have completed their 4 years of medical courses, graduates of medicine, registered nurses, licensed allied health professionals. Number 9, National Disease Prevention Management Authority. This bill seeks to create the Center for Disease Prevention and Control attached to the DOH. Number 10, the creation of the Virology Institute of the Philippines. This will create the Virology Science and Technology Institute of the Philippines as an attached agency of the DOST. All offices and units under the DOST with functions related to virology shall now be transferred to the Virology Institute of the Philippines. Number 11, the Department of Water Resources. This seeks to create the Department of Water Resources and adopts the integrated water resource management as the strategic framework for national water management, policymaking, and planning. Number 12, Unified System of Separation, Retirement, and Pension. This grants a monthly disability pension in lieu of disability benefits provided under existing laws for military and uniformed personnel retired by reasons of disability. Number 13, the E-Governance Act. It promotes the use of internet, and other ICT to provide opportunities for citizens. Number 14, the National Land Use Act. This will provide for a rational and holistic management and development of our country's land and water resources, hold owners accountable for making these lands productive and sustainable, strengthen the LGU to manage ecological balance within its jurisdiction. It also provides for land use and physical planning framework as a mechanism in determining policies and principles to implement this legislative measure. Number 15, the National Defense Act. This seeks to amend the antiquated National Defense Act of 1935 to provide for a change in the military structure of the armed forces of the Philippines that is more responsive to current and future non-conventional security threats to the country's territorial integrity and national sovereignty. Number 16, Mandatory Reserve Officers Training Corps and National Service Training Program. This seeks to reinstitute the ROTC program as a mandatory component of senior high school programs, grades 11 and 12, in all public and private tertiary level educational institutions. The aim is to motivate, train, organize, and mobilize students for national defense preparedness, including disaster preparedness and capacity building for risk-related situations. Number 17, enactment of an enabling law for the natural gas industry. This seeks to foster the development of the midstream natural gas industry in a bid to strengthen Philippine energy security by diversifying the country's primary sources of energy and promoting the role of natural gas as a complementary fuel to variable renewable energy. Number 18, amendments to the Electric Power Industry Reform Act, or EPIRA. This aims to improve the implementation of the law's provisions and enhance its effectiveness to address the high cost of electricity, alleged market collusion, and insufficient power supply. The bill seeks to restructure the Energy Regulation Commission to foster accountability and improve the Commission's government system that would ensure consumer protection and in enhancing competitive operation of the electricity market. Number 19, amendments to the Build, Operate, Transfer Law. This seeks to improve the implementation of the public-private partnership program and to be able to direct the desired outputs and outcomes in line with the strategic development targets of the country. Specifically, the amendments seek to, 1, address the ambiguities in the existing law, 2, address the bottlenecks and challenges affecting the implementation of the PPP program, and 3, foster a more competitive and enabling environment for PPPs. To my fellow Filipinos, ang aking mga minamahal na kababayan, batid ko na hindi madali ang ating pinagdaraanan sa nakaraang higit na 2 taon. Alam ko rin na ang bawat isa sa inyo ay ginagawa ang lahat ng inyong makakaya upang patuloy na harapin ang lahat na pagsubok sa kasalukuyan. I do not intend to diminish the risks and the challenges that we face in this turbulent time in global history. And yet, I see sunlight filtering through these dark clouds. We have assembled the best Filipino minds to help navigate us to this global crisis that we are now facing. We will endure. Let our Filipino spirit ever remain undimmed. I know this in my mind. I know it in my heart. I know it in my very soul. The state of the nation is sound. Thank you and good afternoon. Marami pong salamat sa inyong lahat.